It's been 12 years since I was last here, but this time, everything was completely different. My wife, or rather ex-wife, had 3 days that changed everything the last time I was here. Two of them were vividly remembered by both of us. On the first day, I provided her with hall pass, even though she didn't ask for it. I saw that she was interested in a guy at our hotel, and it seemed like it was love at first sight. Not sure if it was because of the relaxed environment, but I suggested it. We had never done anything like this before and didn't plan to do it again. The next and final highlight was sharing her with the same man. It was nothing like anything else we'd ever done together, and the next morning we didn't. It was a shame. We both felt closer than ever. As we ate breakfast, she said it was a special moment that we would remember together until death do us part. The third day, this day marked the end of our marriage. But let's not get stuck in the past. It's already behind us. I closed this sad chapter and put the book on the dusty shelf of my memory. I moved forward and finally met a woman who was right for me. I've been married to Monica for 5 years. She's a couple years younger than me and just a hot redhead beauty. When I saw her for the first time, I wanted to slap her upside the head. No, not because she made me angry. I saw her red hair and captivating green eyes in the rear view mirror of her car and immediately crashed into the back of her as we stopped in the morning rush. Our traffic. We stopped at the curb and her door swung open. She cheerfully got out of the car. Redheads are famous for their fiery personalities. She took a deep breath, ready to start spitting fire at me, but I beat her to it. Raising my hands and surrender, I extinguished the flames before they even flared up in my direction. Sorry, this is entirely my fault. I will gladly pay for any damages and cover any cost for any reasonable inconvenience this may cause you, I said. This stopped her in her tracks, and her angry face softened as we both went to see what damage was visible. A visual inspection revealed two cracked license plates, but I insisted that she take the car to a reputable auto repair shop to make sure there was no unseen damage. I doubted that they were, because we collided at such a speed that a pensioner walking with a sled frame would hardly be able to reach. Her face softened even more before a few words escaped what I considered kissable lips, and her eyes. They were simply emerald-colored black holes that seemed to be able to suck in all the surrounding atoms. Thanks for taking the blame. Last time this happened, he was a real idiot. He was more worried about scratching his Porsche. Let's just say my brother definitely discovered invisible damage to my car when I took it to his garage. And there it was. A wink and a smile at her little confession. We need to exchange numbers so I can tell you the cost. I unlocked my phone and handed it to her so she could add her number to my contacts. She returned the phone and I dialed her number, hearing it ring and realizing that she had my phone. She took a photo of her license plate, the front of our cars, and then me. I looked at her in bewilderment. Sorry, I should have asked before I took your picture in case you tried to wriggle out of paying, I said. Today is Tuesday. Do you think you can make an estimate by Saturday? She nodded as I busily typed on my phone. Okay, if you can get a copy and give it to me, say, at 8 o'clock in the evening. 8 in the evening. You're a little impudent. Maybe I'm leaving. Somewhere. Actually, I'm a risk taker. I've just booked a table for two at Porcelippo's in Canterbury. During this time, I've never known a woman to turn down a quality Italian restaurant. Consider this an apology with no financial compensation required. Now she was smiling. My husband might not be happy if I go to dinner with a stranger. Then I'll change the booking to 3. Why on earth are you doing this? I can ask him how he feels every day when the happiest man on the planet wakes up with a beautiful woman like you. I opened the Open Table app again to change my reservation when her hand touched mine. She looked at me, frowning in disbelief, and slowly shook her head. No, a table for two is good, thank you. No need to set me up. I know a great dish that can cook man's eggs in. I looked up at her remark as she turned and got into the car. She glanced at me with green eyes in the rearview mirror, shook her head and drove off. If I'm not mistaken, I can say that she grinned like a Cheshire cat. On Saturday evening, we started a serious relationship. Like me, she was divorced and told me that her husband had left for someone else. They had no children and a rented house, so the divorce was easy. She said it hurt, but not as much as she expected, all things considered. I thought this was a strange remark and put it aside without thinking about what it might mean for our future relationship. Of course, we didn't stop at just dating. 18 months later, we tied the knot in a simple wedding ceremony. As our relationship developed, we learned more and more about each other. Monica was, to put it mildly, the most amazing woman on the planet. If it had come with a scorecard, it would have received full marks. Hot body, beautiful face, red hair, green eyes. Impeccable sense of style, intelligence, wit, kindness, compassion, cooking skills, or just some of her qualities. Yes, I missed one thing, our intimacy. If there was an Olympic award for this, Monica would deserve a gold medal. Although my ex-wife, until she fell, could compete with her. But ultimately, Monica would win. Several months into our relationship, after an evening of gourmet food, a few drinks, great music, erotic dancing, and passionate sex, we snuggled together. Slightly drunk, heading to bed. Then Monica told me how she ended up divorced. At school, she had a best friend, Ellie, and they were like sisters. They dated two guys as teenagers. And then Monica dumped Harry when they went to college. A few weeks later, Elle also left her boyfriend. And a few months later, things took a strange turn. Monica started dating Elle's boyfriend. And Lee started dating Monica's boyfriend. A short time passed, and both couples got married. Everything went as usual. Each couple got married. Everyone remained close friends and did a lot together. But this is where the problem started. They rented a villa in Ibiza, a clubbing hotspot for young Europeans. The sun was hot, flesh was on display, and the nightclub scene was wild. Under the influence of many cocktails, one night in a rented villa, they exchanged partners. Just like old times. The problem was that Elle and Ben realized that they had made a big mistake. Each of them married someone other than the one they really loved, even though he tried to hide. At the next day, the decision was made. The exchange of partners continued until Monica stopped it. Then secret connections began, and after a couple of months, they were in plain sight. Glances, flirting, light touches, and then they were caught in their marital bed, in Monica and Ben's bed. In reality, all four of them knew this would happen. It was just that no one was brave enough to say it until it was shown so clearly. This explained what she had said when we first met, that the end of her relationship hurt her, but not as much as she expected, all things considered. But the next revelation came as a real shock. She admitted that she liked the change. It wasn't that it was bringing back anything from the past. It was just that she was enjoying love with someone other than her partner. She admitted that during one session, they were in the same room, on the same bed, and she tried things that a normal couple might not do together. When I asked her what it was, she looked down and said we'd discuss it another day. I opened up and told her my story in detail. Before that, she had heard a very condensed version. I told her that I was on vacation, that my wife was attracted to the lonely guy in room 106, and I gave her a 2-hour pass to the hall. This piqued her interest. Then I told her what happened later, how my ex-wife took to the threesome like a duck takes to water, and how I enjoyed the affair as much as she did. She rolled over onto her side, her curious green eyes looking at me intently, as if eager to know more. You said she left you for someone else. Did she fall in love with him? You both had to be comfortable in your marriage to take the steps you did in the first place. What went wrong? I continued to tell her the story. The next morning, we realized that we really liked what happened. It's true that it's not to everyone's taste, but it suited us. We were lying by the pool, relaxing, wondering where this would take us when two women walked past us. Apparently, teenagers, and we heard their mocking comment. I remember these words verbatim. That's that fat chick who was in the next room with two guys last night. No fucking morals. I continued. My ex, Mala, burst into tears and immediately returned to the room. She stood, looking at herself, criticizing her body. In fact, there was nothing wrong with her. The curves and bumps were in their place, and her figure was beautiful, which she looked at me with tears on her face and asked a question that touched her deeply and which she has since perceived as a lie. Despite the sincerity of my words, I remember saying, "Baby, you're not fat. Trust me, you're perfect." She smiled, but it was just a facade, an attempt to hide the damage that comment had caused her. No woman wants to hear herself called fat, especially if it comes from another woman. From then on, everything went swimmingly, until she was reduced to skin and bones, and I was powerless to change anything. At dinner that night, she put on a brave face, said the comment wouldn't hurt her, and ate her fill before disappearing into the ladies' room for 15 minutes. It didn't even occur to me that she might be forcing herself to get rid of what she'd eaten. We little did she know that this was the onset of bulimia, a mental disorder caused by an unpleasant comment that caused her to overeat and then vomit. It took several weeks before I noticed she was sick, and another week before I realized she was dealing with the problem herself. When her weight dropped sharply, I forced her to see a doctor, but she managed everything. Several more weeks passed until a friend sent me a link to an article about the disease, and only then did I realize what was happening. Lots of tears. Despite losing pounds and looking too thin, she kept saying she was fat. I asked her to show me, and she stood in front of the mirror looking at herself naked. I had a photo of her in a bikini taken during our recent vacation. She denied, seeing only an ugly fat woman. It seemed that each of us saw our own images in this mirror. I described how she remained in the grip of despair until I decided to take measures that I thought would help her get out of this dark hole. I threatened to leave if she didn't seek professional help, but all I achieved was to put a noose around the neck of our marriage. It was enough to pull the lever, and it broke off in less than 6 months. She was indignant, thinking that I was trying to blackmail her, not understanding how my heart broke watching a beautiful woman turn into a walking skeleton. I loved her. I would suffer for her sake. But there are things that the laws of nature do not allow to be corrected. My heart was breaking. If this had been an isolated incident, like a one-night stand with someone else, I would have known what I needed to do to get my wife back if I wanted to do it. But I was lost in this, and I needed help. And then Michael appeared. Our relationship went from bad to worse until I came home from work and saw the skeleton that was once my wife sitting on the couch next to Michael, who was leading her self-help group. After a difficult conversation, she left with Michael. Thus, our marriage ended. This was our way of life, open and honest. Monica and I shared all our thoughts and feelings. We both went through disappointments and relationships and believed that we were simply unlucky in love at a certain point in our lives. In addition to her love for me, Monica had another hobby: competitions. She took part in various competitions in magazines, television, and the internet, where you could participate for free or for a nominal fee. She even won several times, and at the age of 18, she was lucky and won a car. This became an incentive for her to take further action. One Saturday morning, she told me that she had won an all-inclusive holiday to Maspalomas in Gran Canaria, the same place where my marriage had previously broken down. Even though it was a different hotel, I still felt a little uneasy because of the past memories. We stayed at the luxurious Hotel Riu Palace, located on the edge of dunes, similar to the Sahara Desert. Monica chose several areas with nudist beaches, and we went there on the first day. The beaches were spacious, and there were sun loungers next to huts where you could order food and drinks. We relaxed on sun loungers, naked, slathering on sunscreen, and enjoying the sound of the waves crashing on the shore. There were a lot of people on the beach, mostly couples, enjoying their nakedness, having fun and relaxing carefree. Standing out among them were Jessica and John, a couple with athletic bodies and a genuine passion for outdoor activities. Their presence was an integral part of the atmosphere that filled the beach with freedom and joy. We became friends by exchanging candid stories. They, having married young, continued to experience the same passion as at the beginning of the relationship, but with a more liberal view of the world. The conversation turned to Monica's and my story, how we met and how our relationship developed. We didn't go into great detail, but it was clear that our approach to love and relationships was not traditional. As I shared my story, their gazes seemed to briefly meet, but we didn't say anything. Together, we found solace in understanding and supporting each other against the backdrop of the gentle rays of the sun and the sound of the waves. We discussed where we were staying and found out it was a place called Venus Star is an adult-themed resort. When we found out that this meant Triple X, it caused us to look surprised, although none of us expressed our surprise out loud. We spent the next few hours enjoying the atmosphere of relaxation, drinking, talking, sunbathing, and swimming in the sea, fighting the waves. At some point, the wave picked up Jessica, and she suddenly rushed towards me, hugging my waist. Our lips met in a passionate kiss before we were pulled back into the wave. As we rose to our feet, I noticed that Monica and John had moved on and remained safe and sound. John was obviously captivated by Monica, and they were momentarily locked in a passionate kiss and embrace. After that, Monica smiled at me and took a dive, followed by John. A little later, I felt Monica's hands on my hips as she emerged from the water and stood in front of me. Her look confirmed that she was my Monica, but at that moment, she seemed like some kind of mysterious sea siren. We returned to our sun loungers to dry off and prepare to head back to our hotels. Knowing that we were happy together, they invited us to join them later in the evening at the bar. And yes, it was a swingers bar. After exchanging phone numbers, the girls said that we would let them know. However, from Monica's expression when she looked at me, I knew that we were both intrigued and ready for new adventures. We were planning to join. As we walked back to the hotel, we both agreed that it was a pleasant and slightly unexpected meeting that made the day great. Holding each other's hands, we walked along the path leading to the beach. Suddenly, Monica turned to me. "Darling, did you like what happened there? I don't see anything wrong with it. But if we continue, you know where this can lead, right?" I stopped and turned her towards me. Her breathing became faster, and I felt that it was not just from walking. Her eyes looked at me, as if they could speak on their own. I kissed her gently for a few seconds before backing away a little. "I like where this could lead to, but let's give our feelings some time to cool down before we make any decisions, okay?" I looked at her, and my words were interrupted by a gentle, charming kiss. We continued our way to the hotel, holding hands. Returning to the room, we took a shower together. "Oh, Monica, what the hell just happened?" The water was still falling on us, but I noticed that it had taken on a pink tint as it flowed off my body. Monica looked at me in bewilderment. Her eyes between the splashes turned to my neck, and she covered her mouth with her hands. After getting out of the shower, I wiped the steam off the mirror. There was a bite mark on the skin of my collarbone. Light blood flowed where Monica's teeth had broken my skin a little. I was amazed that I did not feel this incident. The adrenaline, dopamine, and oxytocin released during our passionate time in the shower should have numbed the pain I should have felt. I felt Monica's arms wrap around me as she approached me from behind, and an oops sound came from her mouth, followed by a sexy giggle. We dried off and fell onto the bed, quickly falling asleep in each other's arms. When I woke up a couple of hours later, I touched the mark she left, and it was a little painful. Over the next hour, as we got ready, I noticed that Monica wanted to say something, but was holding back. This was the first time in our relationship. Over dinner, I couldn't help but admire my wife. The waiters, as usual, served us diligently, literally vying for the right to bring a new dish or drink. The young waiter helped set Monica down, and his eyes widened when he accidentally looked under her dress, noticing her lack of a bra. After the first course, I decided to talk to her. "Monica, something is bothering you. Can you tell me? Remember we talked about our partner exchange? I promised to share the details later." I nodded, smiling. "I think now is the time. Remember when I said that we did something special that was unusual for us?" I nodded again, intrigued. "Did you kiss Ellen too? Did you like it, Monica?" She blushed, her green eyes drawing me in, her breathing slowing as she approached me across the table, and I followed, inches closer. We barely reached each other, our lips barely touching as we began to kiss tenderly. Physically, it was a light kiss, soft and gentle. Mentally, he was passionate, as if we were in the very center of ancient Babylon. "Have you finished talking to Jessica and John yet?" "Yes, I told them that we'll meet at Comeback Bar at 10 p.m. It's not far, we just have to walk up the road about half a mile, then go up to the second floor." "I see. But how far are we going to go into this rabbit hole, Monica? If we go all the way, then you know what awaits us." "Yes, I saw the way you look at Jessica. I'm not offended. I put on a show myself. And John reacted the same way. It would be strange if you both didn't react that way. When we sat there naked today, I wanted to repeat that the feeling of elation that I felt with Ellen, Gary, and Ben, but this time I want to experience it with you." Her face glowed with excitement, and the thought of what she was offering gave me an idea. "Do you mind if I play with Jessica? I feel as comfortable with you as I always have, just like when we first met. I'll watch with pleasure if you enjoy it. After all, it's just a fitness machine." During dinner, her phone rang. Several times she answered messages. At one point her eyes widened and she laughed. When I asked what was going on, she simply said that I would find out about everything later, and it would be a pleasant surprise, but she needed to go back to the room before we left. After dinner, she disappeared into our room, and I went into the bar. When she returned, her makeup had been freshened, and her lips, covered in red gloss, looked especially seductive. The green velvet dress, hugging her body and emphasizing her curves, attracted glances with its sexuality. It was asymmetrical, with a full sleeve on one side and a small spaghetti strap on the other. The dress was decorated with rhinestones and pleating, and I was surprised that she didn't start a fire as she walked by. She looked amazingly attractive. I also noticed that she had swapped out her small clutch for a larger purse. "Is your other purse broken?" I asked. She stopped and kissed me at the bar before we went outside. Pressing her ear to my ear, she whispered, "Oh no, baby. It's just that Jessica and John couldn't contain their passion in their room." This was said almost as a joke, but I understood that this might be my last chance to refuse. Remembering Jessica's hot body, I felt that I wanted to join it at least once. As for Monica's plans, I already went through this in my last marriage. We were both calm about what was likely to happen that evening. We headed to the Cita Center, which turned out to be a typical Spanish shopping complex. Inside, there were many restaurants, shops with a variety of goods, as well as many bars, mostly German. The overall appearance of the center looked tired, likely due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has hit hard and forced many tenants to close. However, advertisements inside the complex indicated that bars and clubs for swingers were plentiful. We later found out that this was one of the largest swingers areas in Europe. On the ground floor, we noticed a sign for the bar, "Come back." At first, he seemed ordinary, giving nothing away about his specificity. When we arrived, Jessica saw us first and screamed with joy. Monica came over to hug her, and I shook John's hand. After a short greeting, he smiled and nodded his head, indicating for me to look to the right. Turning around, I saw how the girls kissed passionately, as if they had forgotten about us. After laughing, they fixed their makeup, which had suffered a little from the passionate kiss. They then offered to do the same with us and John. I was a little worried about the tense atmosphere in the air, but to my relief, the bar was calm. About 100 people gathered here, joking, talking, and flirting. As the evening went on, people moved around the bar, and I found myself with John and a few other guys discussing sports. Our girls seemed to be exchanging messages while concentrating on their phones. This made me curious, but I did not interfere. When Monica noticed my gaze, she winked at me and stuck out her tongue playfully while I was at the gentlemen's club. The liquor I had consumed began to take its toll. When I returned to our group, John and the girls seemed to be having an interesting conversation, but it was interrupted when I entered. To diffuse the situation, I interjected, "Hey, don't stop talking now that I'm back. Unless you're talking about bloody Love Island, Monica knows it's not my thing." This caused a little laughter, but underneath there was something tense. For the first time, I felt like something was going on, something where I didn't fit in. Then John spoke. "Sorry for the interruption. We're a little late. We were planning to meet our old friends, Deborah and Greg, at the club tonight. It's their last night here, and we agreed to meet up if they were free. However, they were unavailable all day, so how we went on a boat trip, and their phone didn't have a signal. If you want, you can join us." Monica interrupted his sentence. "Instead of the four of us, there will be six, if everyone agrees, of course. We have already said that we are not against it, but if you don't like it, then this is not a problem. We can just look into the club, see how it is there, and make a decision. I love the atmosphere here, and I'd like to see what it's like behind closed doors, so to speak." "No, I agree. Let's meet this couple. 7, 8, why not?" They all laughed and smiled. But I felt that it was not just that. It was something more. Maybe they were afraid that I wouldn't be happy about our time being stolen by another couple. We finished our drinks and went down 2 flights of stairs to the basement where the Secrets Club was located. We paid the entrance fee and went inside. Yes, it was a completely different place, much more depraved than what we saw above. At first glance, it looked like a small nightclub. The large bar was located slightly away from the center with a dance floor on one side where the crowd danced to heavy club rhythms. On the other side, in the corner, there were lockers for clothes, and here everything became noticeably different from a regular club. People there changed clothes, women put on underwear, and men took off their clothes. Each locker seemed to have 2 towels, and they were taken and disappeared into an area designated couples only, under the watchful eye of a security guard. When I asked John why a security guard was needed, he replied that it was to keep single men out. He then pointed across the club to a section where, in his words, anything is possible. As he spoke, I watched in amazement as the couple headed there. He noticed my bewilderment and explained what he had just seen. "You already know how it works, buddy," he said as we sat down at the table. "The only difference is that some of these girls here can be quite persistent." He winked at me, and I turned to see the girls already on the dance floor and wasting no time in moving essentially to the catchy music. By the time we ordered drinks, they were already dragging us to the dance floor, changing between us and trying to excite us with lewd dancing or passionate kisses. It seemed that today they were performing some kind of task. Suddenly, Jessica stopped, waving her arms in the air to attract attention. I saw a couple enter the hall, and they noticed her. I assumed it was Greg and Deborah. They approached John, Jessica, Greg, and Deborah hugged. And then, with the music blaring, they introduced us to each other, even in the semi-darkness. I noticed that the others were trying to steal glances in my direction when I kissed Deborah on the cheek during introductions. When we parted, she looked into my eyes, smiling coyly. Without having time to say anything more, the girls grabbed her hand and carried her to the cabinets, and at that time, we ordered another portion. Almost spilled the drink when the girls returned. Jessica only had black knee socks and heels, but Monica really shocked me. She was wearing a stretched luminous dress that could fit through the eye of a needle, just like thin paper. I understood why she needed a bigger bag. Deborah followed them. Her stockings and black stilettos complemented her striking dressy footwear. I wanted to admire women. They were ideal examples of femininity. By this point, the dance floor was just full of writhing bodies. Me, John, and Greg went to the bar while the girls continued to dance as if they were performing at a strip club. Jessica walked up to John and started talking to him, and he nodded and returned to Greg and me. "D-Day, gentlemen," John said as we approached the girls. "The girls want us to take off our clothes and join them in the couples area." We went to change and returned to the girls, after which we all headed to the couples area. The music, although still loud, was now muffled due to the Walls separating the two sections of the club. The main area was dimly lit. Just inside the entrance was a raised rectangular bed about 20 feet long, on which three couples were seriously making out with each other. There were also other smaller beds, as well as various pieces of furniture intended for various pleasures. A young Spanish couple demonstrated this vividly while sitting on a sun lounger. We decided to explore the club and headed to the smaller autonomous zone. Like the main room, there was a long rectangular bed on which 5 couples could play. Adjoining it were 4 small rooms, locked with a key. One of them was occupied, the rest were open. Each of them had a king-size bed and a couple of chairs. I didn't notice that Jessica had disappeared at that time. When she returned, she was holding a glass with pieces of folded paper in it. It's Deborah and Greg's last night, so I'm suggesting a little game if you're all up for it, Jessica announced. Everyone except me instantly nodded in agreement. What kind of game is this, Jessica? I asked. Oh, we'll see. This will be interesting. All or nothing. Don't you agree? I agreed with some doubt. Why did everyone seem to know what was going on except me? Something was bothering me, and I intended to find out from Monica what was going on. To avoid attracting too much attention, I nodded in agreement. Jessica smiled before announcing the rules. Okay, we're gonna play at the hall pass. The 3 pieces of paper inside this glass are our 3 names. Each of you chooses one of them, and the one whose name you choose will spend an hour in a room with that person, and then we will all go out together and lie down on the big bed. The others were delighted, but I had serious doubts. Asking the others to wait, I pulled Monica into the room. Monica, I have a few questions for you about this game. It might be a bad idea. She put a finger to my lips to silence me, and then gently pressed her lips to mine, hugging me tightly and pulling away a little. Please, Donovan, don't say anything else. Just enjoy the moment. It's just for an hour, no more, no less. Even if I paid for it, you'd still choose my damn name. I sighed and nodded in agreement, although I felt that something was wrong. We walked outside, and Monica nodded, smiling at the others. Their happy smiles returned to their faces, and the party atmosphere became joyful again. Now, Donovan, you're new, so you get to pick first. If you pick Monica, you can pick her again, Jessica announced. I reached out and pulled out a piece of paper with the name Deborah. This happened, what I was afraid of, what I didn't want. I wanted to object to Monica, but she again put her finger on my lips to silence me, kissed me, and then directed me into the room. Deborah followed me and closed the door. I turned around. She was smiling, but in her eyes I caught some anxiety. Hey, Mala, do you prefer your middle name now? She didn't answer, but simply stepped forward, wrapped her arms around my neck, and pulled me towards her for a tender kiss. A kaleidoscope of emotions flashed through my head. When you meet again after a long time, a passionate kiss is like a dive into the past, like the resurfacing of old feelings and memories. We both shared so many moments together that it was more than just a kiss. It was a memory of our love, of how I once adored this woman with all my heart and soul. Mala, I can't afford to do that. It would be a betrayal of Monica. Do you understand me? She looked at me with a smile and calmness. Please call me Deborah. Mala is a thing of the past. Can I tell you a little secret? I nodded slowly. Monica knows about me. And this was all planned so that we would end up here, together. Now, this passage into the club was intended just for us. It amazed me. How the hell could Monica know about this? Deborah must have realized that I was uncomfortable in this situation, but how did my wife know? This is just ridiculous. I started to move towards the door, but Deborah grabbed my arm. Please stay, Donovan, at least to talk. I never stopped loving you, but I'm not here to interfere with your marriage. Monica, she's amazing. But you were once my husband, and when we separated, I saw how our feeling with you was fading, and it destroyed me. I had to let you go. For the sake of your happiness, I never doubted that someone would come and see the amazing man with whom I fell in love, married, and still have love for him. Tears streamed down her cheeks as She held me close to her, so close that her voice became a soft whisper in my ear. I prayed that one day I would have a chance to see you, to tell you that I was sorry for turning to someone else. When you did everything you could to save me, I am grateful to you for letting me go without trying to fight. I was too weak by then. My mind, it was a complete mess. And it was several months before I completely hit rock bottom and found a way out. The first shock that made me try to look at my life rationally came when one of the women who had been attending a self-help group for several months stopped coming, and a few months later, we learned that she had died due to complications associated with her illness. I felt like I could be next, and my therapist tried different methods to help me. Finally, she suggested that I bury Melu and let Debbie take center stage. She emphasized that Debbie didn't want to be Melu, and becoming Debbie gave the person in front of you the opportunity to be free of illness. Using my middle name helped me separate myself from the previous personality. Slowly but surely I found a way to overcome bulimia, but along the way, I already lost you. And that was the most painful part of the whole experience. I didn't care that I still looked like a walking skeleton. I didn't have my self-caring person in my life. I needed to find out what happened to Michael. Michael helped me, but only to a certain point. Michael was attracted to a woman who needed help. It was his perversion in a sense. Within 6 months, I found a way out, and I was no longer attracted to him. In fact, I was never attracted to him, but at the moment we separated, he was aware of my condition, and this was the basis of his attraction. You should know that I was never physically unfaithful to you. Physically, I gave myself completely to Michael only after we broke up, and several months passed before I took that final step, giving him my body. Emotionally, Michael and I, there was a weak connection before we broke up. But it was weak. I didn't want to hurt you. If you think that the lack of sexual connection between you and me was because of Michael, then it's just my physical and emotional state that took all the desire from me. It was never directed anywhere else. I nodded, letting her know that I agreed with her statement. I was looking for you. One day I walked into that bar you frequented. I saw you with a woman, dancing. You looked so happy and content that I couldn't interfere in your life after we turned ours into shit. So I left, vowing that I would not create any storms in your life. And here I am, and I'm glad. So how does Monica know who you are? Did you contact her? Didn't me. SHH. Just hold me for a few moments. This is not at all what you expect. I hugged her, feeling her head rest on my shoulder, and then felt small kisses as she began to move. Up my shoulder, to my neck, then to my lips. Our lips connected again, and our tongues explored the familiar contours. As I pulled away, I felt an internal rupture. I wanted this. But in my mind, I saw Monica's burning green eyes, judging me. We separated and sat on the bed. Deborah saw that I was trying to decide what to do. I was introduced to Monica via WhatsApp today. As you were discussing life with Jessica and John on the beach, they suddenly realized that your story is similar to mine, and that we were once husband and wife. They are very good friends with Greg and me, so they informed me that you are here and with them. I had a conversation with Greg. By the way, you'll like him. He's so much like you in so many ways. I guess I'm attracted to the same type. I met Greg at work when I started gaining weight, and we started dating. You know me. I told him everything, and he accepted it without problems. A couple of years later, we got married. So, you're obviously in a scene with Jessica and John. Did Greg introduce you to them? No, I was honest with him from the very beginning, and he knew what we did on that vacation. One night, out of the blue, he asked me what it was like to share my body with another man, without a husband, and then with 2 men. I think he was a little afraid that I might be free and without fantasy, but I explained that the first experience without you was a one-time thing that should not be repeated. As for what the 3 of us shared, I admitted that then it was so deep. It sank into my soul that the taboo thrill of what I was doing and the incredible emotions, combined with the physical action, were incredible, and Greg didn't react, and the topic didn't come up for months. One night after making love, Greg took out his tablet and showed me the Swingers app. It was amazing. I had no idea how many people are passionate about this lifestyle. What struck me most was the ability to see who was nearby by distance. There were about 100 people within a 1-mile radius. So we went on a trip together. It all started in chat rooms. Then we went on a date with a couple, which ended with kissing and petting at their house. They suggested we go to a local club. They had themed events, and Halloween was on the line. So we went. That night was amazing. If on the date we plunged headlong, then that night we dived from the highest board. After that, we began to lead a lifestyle that suits us. Jessica texted me earlier, and she also told Monica that I was here. With her permission, we started a group, and we messaged each other all day. When I spoke to Greg, he wanted some time to think about meeting you. He spoke to John, and John assured him that it was very obvious that you were so in love with Monica that there would be no risk. You also made it clear that you didn't hate me. He knew that I felt like I had let you down, and having received a chance to change your last impression of me from that sad meeting with Michael at our house to an hour-long pass to spend time with you and eliminate that last meeting. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at me, and the moisture from her tears made her look sultry, even with her eye makeup a little smudged. Suddenly, she started giggling. "What's so funny? Didn't you think it was strange that I picked your name out of the glass? I prayed that I wouldn't choose you, but it seems like fate decreed that we ended up together." The giggles turned to laughter. Deborah pulled herself together and looked at me, shaking her head. "Fate has nothing to do with it. Jessica wrote my name on all 3 pieces of paper." I started laughing too. How could I not notice? When we stopped laughing, Deborah looked at me, and I could still read her. The shape of her lips, the lust in her eyes, and the tension in her facial muscles told me what she wanted. She wanted. When I looked at her, it seemed to me that she looked better than before her illness. She had noticeably tightened up. It's such a strange feeling. Amazing. When we lie here, my mind is just filled with thoughts of what awaits us, where we are going, even before we do it. It's so strange, but so familiar. It's like driving on a bicycle. Once you know how it's done, you'll never forget. I raised my eyebrows at her. "Are you calling me a bicycle?" We both laughed as she shook her head. "Not today, Mark." We all agreed that this would be a one-time thing, if that's okay with you. As we kissed, memories of us making love flashed through my head. The first time was in the back seat of my car on a country road, when I put on a lavish show for Monica's birthday, booking a room at the St. Pancras Renaissance Hotel in London, champagne and flowers, spending a lot of money compared to my income then. And, of course, our time here in Gran Canaria. I rolled over next to her, and she cuddled up to me, hugging me with one leg. Then she started sobbing. I tried to move to look at her, but she answered in a barely audible voice, "Please stay still and hold me. Let me just be here." "At least for the last time," she whispered silently. I understood her words. What was between us was gone, and this instant connection gave us the opportunity to return to the happy moments of the past while we were both still able to feel it. We closed the door to the past, sharing a long, extinct passion. We lay there for about 15 minutes until we came to our senses. I began to wonder what awaited us next once we emerged from this temporary shelter, where we had been living for the last hour. How will Monica and Greg react to this? The job is done, and in a few minutes, we will know what will happen next. We got out of bed, taking 2 towels with us. It seems to be common practice to wipe down the bed after use. I grabbed some spray and some paper towels to quickly tidy up the bed, and then we opened the door. But the sight that greeted us was completely unexpected. Deborah smiled mischievously at our surprise. On the huge bed located near our room, Monica and Jessica stood on all fours opposite each other, trying to continue the passionate kiss. The only problem was that Jessica had Greg on his knees, and John was behind Monica, both trying to make the best of it. When they noticed us, they stopped and dispersed. Monica climbed off the bed and smiled at me, with a hint of some hesitation. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Deborah in advance. When she offered to give me a temporary pass to the gym, I agreed without hesitation. But if I had known in advance that Deborah would be here, you might have avoided it. But in case something went wrong, now kiss me. I kissed my wife. I should have realized that there might be a slightly different taste on her lips. But I didn't even ask and could only assume that I left a slightly tart taste on her lips. Greg and Deborah repeated our movements until they pulled away from each other. Monica walked up to Deborah and looked into her eyes. A moment later, her hands clasped Deborah's head, and they kissed passionately, merging in their embrace for about a minute. While this was happening, Greg walked up to me, smiled, and extended his hand. We shook hands. Nice to meet you, Donovan. I apologize for the cloak and dagger analogy earlier. I don't accept such things, but perhaps in this case, it was appropriate. It helped Deborah free herself from the weight that was weighing on her like an albatross. Guilt for leaving you and watching you suffer helplessly. She sincerely wants your suffering to end. This guilt made her feel terrible for leaving. I know you tried, and I am very grateful to you for letting her go and supporting her in this decision. When she found out you were here, she felt like she had a chance to make things right, at least to some extent. I didn't know what was going on behind the door, but I don't mind what happened. He laughed. Luck smiled on me, too. Monica is an amazing woman. Like Medusa, those eyes penetrate the soul and leave a mark. She definitely turned a part of me into stone and then masterfully used it. We both smiled. Deborah was right. I liked Greg, and I understood why she was attracted to him. The girls approached to holding hands. Monica took the floor. Deborah has something that belongs to me, and I want it back. The rest of the night was like no other. We left the club at 4 in the morning, completely both physically and mentally tired. The sexual excitement we felt was incredible, and we both knew it was something we would never experience again. The next morning, we woke up and lay in bed, hugging each other. Green eyes sparkled like emeralds when we hugged. Did we feel shame? No. Repentance? No. Regret about our actions towards others? No. We went into this with our eyes open, although my vision was a little clouded by the true nature of what might happen. Monica assured me that she was fine. Yes, of course, some part of her was scared when I walked into the room, but she said it was a natural feeling. The main thing is that we loved each other, and such games require honesty, except for cases when your wife secretly sets you up with your ex, and unconditional trust in each other, considering that we have already encountered this in our previous relationships. We have already tasted the forbidden fruit, conscious sexual intercourse with others. For some, our lifestyle may seem disgusting, but that's normal. Everyone is different. Just accept that we are happy in our skin. Will we do this again? Monica is already looking at flights and hotels for next year.